Jesus commissioned his disciples to make disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything Jesus commanded them.
We at the American Family Association seek to aid the church in our Great Commission.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Investigators in Canada looking into a Delta Airlines plane that flipped over after crash landing on Monday. Nate Foy has the latest from Toronto.
Early indications are this could have been a lot worse. We know 80 people on board. Officials say right now they know of 18 people who are injured. Those injuries range from minor to serious, but the important thing is that none of them are considered life-threatening. The flight took off from Minneapolis. It came down here in Toronto. It was operated by Endeavour, a subsidiary of Delta. We know that the Transportation Safety Board of Canada is going to lead the investigation. The FAA also is going to be at the crash site. Once the plane crashed, officials here say it was a textbook emergency response. Firefighters put out flames on the runway, and the cabin crew evacuated passengers with the plane flipped over.
The Department of Government Efficiency, led by Elon Musk, will soon have access to an Internal Revenue Service system that contains sensitive taxpayer information. Harrison Fields, the White House Principal Deputy Press Secretary, says access to this system is necessary to identify fraud and fix the system. Fox News legal editor Carrie Urban says Elon Musk has the authority to do this.
One thing that I think has been just strange in this whole conversation around Doge over the last few weeks is this idea that you even need a security clearance to access tax information and social security numbers. You don't, unless that social security number is attached to sensitive information. Now, the White House has said, and a source that I have within the government has confirmed this with me, that Doge employees who are accessing sensitive information have the appropriate training and clearances. So that should really be a non-issue at this point.
The largest teachers union in Massachusetts is under investigation for offering anti-Semitic learning materials to its members. In a tense 3-hour meeting Monday, lawmakers on the Special Legislative Council on Combating Anti-Semitism grilled Massachusetts Teacher Association President Max Page about materials the union made available to its members that many perceived as anti-Semitic. State Representative Simon Cataldo read from a children's book about a Palestinian girl.
When I was only 10 years old, I had to flee my home in Palestine. A group of bullies called Zionists wanted our land, so they stole it by force and hurt many people. The student is instructed to take several actions to help Handala, including raising funds and chanting at protests.
Mike Huckabee is President Trump's nominee for ambassador to Israel.
Yeah, you know, those Zionists have only been in that land given to them by God 3,500 years ago, and it's just absurd. The schools should not be indoctrinating children into anti-Semitism. It's a dangerous thing, and what I hope is that it's not just for Jewish people to stand up. This is for every Christian, every Muslim, every Hindu, everyone of any faith, including atheists, should stand up and say this is just blatant bigotry.
A conservative columnist says Vice President Vance was very courageous in castigating EU leaders about the lack of free speech in Europe.
The vice president created quite a stir when he scolded European heads of state and other high-ranking officials in Munich, Germany, for what he called a return to Soviet-style censorship on the continent. In fact, Vance says the censorship activities were a bigger threat to its existence than Russia. He said Europe had forgotten the lessons of the Cold War and the Soviet Union's censorship policies. Robert Knight is a conservative activist and a columnist for the Washington Times. He says Europeans are busy pushing woke policies.
Subjecting people to controls over social media. They're shutting down churches. They're arresting protesters who are peaceful at abortion clinics. They're doing things that indicate they really don't share the idea of basic human liberties as enshrined in our Declaration of Independence and Constitution. And J.D. Vance was very courageous, I think, in how he put things. He knew a lot of them wouldn't like it, but he decided to tell the truth and let the chips fall.
And Knight says European officials are hitting back.
Right now, they're circling the wagons, but this stuff gets out there now. Social media spreads it. Many, many people have seen J.D. Vance's speech and found that it's eminently reasonable.
I'm Chad Groening.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
American Family Association would like to thank everyone who participated in our Target boycott. AFA declared the boycott when Target announced it would allow men into women's dressing rooms and restrooms. Since the start of the boycott, Target lost over $2 billion in stock value. They've scaled back LGBT Pride Month products and added single-occupancy restrooms. Other corporations also reconsidered their policies in light of the Target boycott. Since it served its purpose, AFA has officially ended our Target boycott.
Welcome to Today's Issues. Join us for the next hour as we offer a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Ed Vitagliano.
And welcome to Today's Issues. Ed Vitagliano sitting in for Tim Wildmon this week. I am joined in studio by Fred Jackson. Good morning, Fred.
Hello, Ed.
Chris Woodward is our news guy today. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm well.
And from the frozen tundra, Dr. Ray Pritchard, the always steady and reliable Ray Pritchard. Good morning to you, Ray.
How you doing, Ed? It's cold. It cold up here.
I wish people could see. Now we have Ray is remote.
Very remote.
He's very remote. No, but we do have him on. We have little iPads, and so we can see Ray, even though he's in Kansas City. And he is wearing a...
What do you call this?
I don't know what kind of hat that is. You look like Nanook of the North.
Yeah, it's more than a ski cap, right?
You're Dr. Zhivago right now.
Yeah. Dr. Zhivago. But that's because it's freezing cold where you're at.
-1 this morning. Right now, just checked. And the wind chill is -15 here in balmy Shawnee, Kansas.
Balmy.
Yeah. So if people have watched, was it Christmas Vacation?
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Yeah, and Cousin Eddie.
The Eddie character?
Yes.
All right.
That's right.
This is what our friend Ray is wearing right now on his head.
How cold is it? It's Canada cold, Fred.
My.
It's chilly up here.
I just want to ask you there, Ray, how much of that hat set you back?
I was with my granddaughter a year or so ago up in Missoula, Montana, and we went a little shopping spree to Shields. And you're with your granddaughter, you got to spend some money.
Yeah.
Bought her some stuff, and I just saw this and grabbed it. I didn't even look at the price, right?
I know. I remember, and then we will move on, folks. When my daughter, who's now in her 40s, but when she was, 5 years old, something like that, my parents, her grandparents, were visiting, and we were at a store, and they had a bin of they might have been Disney sneakers. I don't know. But she looked at my dad and said, because we said no. She asked Mom and Dad, and we said, no, you got plenty of sneakers. And she went to her grandfather, and she said, I sure wish I had a pair of these sneakers.
There's no way he's going to say no to
total manipulation. But that's what grandparents are for.
That's right. That's why we're here, friends.
That's right. All right. Okay, so it's cold there. We talked about yesterday in the north, Fred, it was like the northern tier of states was going to be 50 below or something like that, wind chill.
North Dakota, Minnesota, we're talking wind chills, -45, -50. It is not fit, as the old saying goes, for man or beast to be outside in that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they're going to be canceling schools because you dare not want your kids waiting for school buses or anything like that. The other thing, I lived in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, Canada for a while.
Great name for a town.
So I have felt the -45, -50 temperatures.
Yeah.
I've mentioned before, there were a couple of times I had to leave my car running all night to save money.
To save money?
Because a couple of times I didn't leave it running all night and have to get it towed to a garage to get it thawed out.
Yeah, otherwise it would crack the block.
Yes. So having lived there, I know how that feels. But there is, and I'm sure the folks who live in this area do this. If you have to be out driving any distance on the interstates or anything, you need a survival kit in your car.
Yes.
You need to be taking some food. You need to be taking some candles, all of that sort of thing in case your car stalls. I had the experience of I was driving along an interstate. It was a nice, clear night, but it was freezing cold.
Right.
but my car started what I would call buck.
Yeah. Ooh.
The engine started to freeze. Even though I was moving down the highway 40, 50 miles an hour, it was starting to freeze.
Yeah, the heat could not keep up with the plummeting
The cold.
temperatures.
I had to get out of the car, and I had to tear some of the top off a cardboard box and put it in the grill, on the outside of the grill of the car.
Yeah.
To block the cold air coming in. And that's the way I survived.
Well, now you stayed in the car. Your car, you didn't drive anymore, is what you're saying.
Oh, yeah, I drove. I was able to drive after that because the cardboard stopped enough of the cold air coming in.
To keep the engine. Wow.
To keep the engine
I would
warm.
never have thought of that.
Yeah, it's
So be so careful, folks. You don't mess with this kind of weather.
Well, and listen, you don't mess with a lot of rain and floods. When they say flood warnings, they mean it.
Yes.
If you see water over a road, don't assume that you can just plow through it, because sometimes people get themselves in trouble.
Yeah.
It's stories like this that make me sometimes wonder what it would have been like had the Jamestown settlers sailed for Honolulu instead of Virginia. We'd all be
a much longer
yeah,
trip.
Ray would not be wearing that hat.
That's exactly right. That's right.
All right. Well, Chris, we've reminisced enough. We've issued warnings for weather. We've given our weather advisories.
Yes.
Let's get to the news.
Well, there's a travel advisory for many people flying or driving because of this weather, and certainly a lot of people are on edge if they're getting on a plane today. And I say that because of incidents involving planes that have been in the news. The big one yesterday, this terrifying story: a Delta Airlines jet flipped on its roof while landing at Toronto's Pearson Airport. The good news is all 80 people on board survived, and those hurt had relatively minor injuries, but no doubt a terrifying experience, especially for the young child that was among those injured yesterday. We have a story about this on our website, afn.net, and there are various quotes from people that were on board the plane. One of them is a guy named Peter, who told CBC, all of a sudden everything just kind of went sideways, and then next thing I know, it's kind of a blink and I'm upside down, still strapped in. There's all kinds of videos out there on the internet today, which you can listen to or watch at your convenience after this show, that show kind of what it was like for the passengers after this happened as they're all pouring out of this plane. A very terrifying experience.
Ray, I don't know that I'd ever go back on a plane. Fred, you said something about the landing gear on the right side collapsed.
The video that is out there right now, taken by the pilots in another airplane that were taxiing there in Toronto. So they saw all of this, and they happened to have their phone out showing this. And it shows the plane coming down very hard on its right main gear. This was an RJ9, I believe it was, and CRJ9. And so it landed hard on that right gear and then flipped as if the wing literally broke off. And
the right side collapsed.
Yes. That right wing breaks off, and then the plane, the fuselage, flips right over. And as some people have noted, it was good that that wing broke off because there's a lot of fuel in the wings. So that wing was left behind. The fuselage was basically, other than missing that wing, was kept intact. So everybody inside, I guess the biggest stress was getting unhooked, being upside down inside that aircraft.
Yeah, because they were, Ray, they all look like the description has been like bats.
Right, hanging like bats.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if you're a passenger and you're coming into Toronto, right, and it's just been another flight, just a little bit of weather, there's some wind and stuff, right? And then all of a sudden there's a crash, you're flipped upside down, and you're hanging from the ceiling like a bat. And there's, and all your weight then is on your belt, so you can't really get yourself out of there. That's a terrifying thought. And there have been no fatalities, right?
That's correct.
Just some injuries. Yeah, listen, the video that I saw, you showed it to me, Fred, that this other pilot was taking. When it flipped, there's a fireball.
Oh, yes.
I guess as some of the fuel explodes now, I guess maybe they outran it or outslid it some. But if you're, I mean, it was over in seconds in terms of the event itself, but surely some people caught a glimpse of fire, and I can't think of anything more terrifying than being upside down and thinking, what if fire engulfs this plane?
If nothing else, people pay attention to the flight attendant when they said, we're about to land, get back in your seats and buckle in.
Right.
Don't play with that.
Well, I've seen videos of planes hitting turbulence.
Yes.
And a sudden drop in elevation, and people who aren't buckled up fly up, hit their heads on the top of the cabin.
Neck injuries.
Yeah, it's just, do what you're told when those kinds of things, when you're flying.
Now, because we're radio, I have posted videos of the incident we're discussing on our Today's Issues Facebook page. There's a couple of different videos from different angles. New York Post, Fox, and CNN also has one as well.
All right.
Very scary stuff.
All right, and to your earlier point, Chris, these things do happen periodically, but we have had a cluster of them.
Yes.
Here since the start of the year. So I don't know if, my wife and I have to fly this summer to go to a nephew's wedding, and it's in Utah. I'm going to see if she wants to go trailways or drive.
Yeah.
It's a road trip.
I don't,
trip.
I don't blame you for being concerned. When these things happen, it's all people talk about for days. It's almost like news outlets now have somebody platooned to be the plane disaster reporter.
Yeah.
Remember, like 15 years ago, there was a cruise ship that died somewhere out at sea, and they had no plumbing, they had no electricity, couldn't have water. They were airdropping stuff in.
It was a 3-hour cruise, wasn't it?
It was, yes. And then not long after that happened, there was another cruise ship that had a problem. And then there was another one, and I did get it, Mr. Professor. And then, so it almost after one or two cruise ships had problems, then it became a thing, and news outlets were quick to pounce on it. And there are thousands of planes in the air, and the mathematical odds of you being on one in a disaster are very small. You'd probably have a better chance of getting struck by lightning on your way to claim your winning lottery ticket than be in something like this, but it is possible.
The odds are less than or greater than you getting milk and bread at the grocery store when a winter storm is approaching.
Yes, for people that have never, for people that have yet to fulfill their dream vacation of seeing the South, we like to run for some bizarre reason. We like to make a run on milk and bread when the guy on the TV says we might get snow.
Yeah.
And school's
Which is
closed for
tomorrow.
3 days. Yes.
We might get a little snow. All right, let's well, I don't want to get back into the weather thing. Let's continue on with the news.
Well, this is just breaking, developing news out of Washington, D.C., and I'll post this on our page as well. The Trump administration is giving America's schools and universities 2 weeks to eliminate their diversity initiatives or risk losing federal money, raising the stakes in the president's fight against wokeness, and sowing confusion as schools scramble to comply. That's how the AP words it. In a memo, the Education Department gave an ultimatum to stop using racial preferences as a factor in admissions, financial aid, hiring, or other areas. Schools are being given 14 days to end any practice that treats students or workers differently because of their race. There was a time, not that long ago, when this was not an issue. But in recent years, due to efforts by the Obama-Biden administration and then certainly the Biden-Harris administration, schools started doing this thing in the name of inclusivity, and it's wrong. And so the Trump administration is trying to make it right and bring us back to a merit-based system that awards, merit and not what you look like or how you might live your life.
Fred, it's striking to me how quickly this ideology has become embedded in certain institutions. It's not just colleges and universities. That's kind of the way these things, they used to start there and kind of stay in those institutions, but how quickly it went from the colleges and universities down into even the lower grades, and the task of digging that out and getting it out of the school systems just looks monumental.
Yeah, I'm not sure how they're going to do this. I guess they will have people reporting to them, but just one of the things that this story from the Associated Press, what Chris has been talking about, one of the things they're going to be looking for, the directive from the Trump administration It forbids dorms or graduation events for students of certain races. In other words, we're not going to have graduation ceremonies where only one race is represented.
Yeah, there were like dorms entirely for black students, and graduations just for black students.
And people are, if that's not racism, I don't know what is.
Right.
And so there's going to be this effort. It's going to be very hard to manage because this applies not only to universities but it also applies to schools as well. And what they're looking for is basing admissions, advancement, etc., on merit, accomplishment, and character, is what the White House is saying. So, this idea of race-based preferences has been there for a long time now. It's been in place. Programs have been put in place. But this is going to be, it's worth it to make the attempt, but it's going to be very hard to manage.
You know, Ray, I have to give President Trump credit. And we may talk later on about some of the polling that's out where people are giving him 2 thumbs up kind of thing. I mean, just really praising his efforts to keep his promises. It's shocking that a president elected after promising X, Y, and Z, long list of things, is actually doing what he said, and that seems to be striking quite a positive tone amongst a lot of American voters.
We are used to electing presidents who disappoint us within a week, a month, a year, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Trump, I mean, you can tally up strengths and weaknesses any way you want to, and I think his strengths far outweigh his weaknesses for that matter. But I think way over on the strength side is the fact, Fred or Ed, he did not wait until Inauguration Day. He got started in the interim period and then blasted out of a cannon. I mean, what are we? We're about a month into his term, right?
Yeah, actually less than a month.
Yeah.
Less than a month. Look how much he has already accomplished. And I think that's why a lot of people in that, the great mushy middle that can go either way, a lot of those folks are, when they're being surveyed, they approve of him because they like a president who's getting things done and who is actually doing what he said he was going to do. We're not used to that.
It's very interesting. You mentioned polling showing that people like what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's winning the polls on this. And I heard a comment yesterday on one of the programs I was watching, and they said President Trump is destroying the Democrat Party, but he's also destroying the old Republican Party.
Yeah,
which I thought it's very interesting observation to make. Clearly, the Democrats obviously lost the last election because the American people said, we don't favor open borders.
Right.
Our economy is in a mess. All of these things.
We don't want men in women's locker rooms.
Yes. But the Democratic Party doesn't seem to want to recognize they've got to change their tune.
Yeah.
And perhaps Chris is going to deal with what's going on with Elon Musk, the latest on that front. Mm-hmm. But also the point about Trump has destroyed the old Republican Party. And I think that is true. The party of the Bushes, senior and junior, that party's gone. Like Mitch McConnell voting against some of Trump's nominees. That old Republican Party has been taken over by Donald Trump, whether you like that or not, or where you stand on that.
Right.
It is now Trump's Republican Party. Very different from the old Republican Party. Because honestly, when you look at what Elon Musk is doing and what he's discovering,
oh my goodness,
we're going to be talking about this. This kind of corruption, fraud, which is what this seems to be uncovering, has been going on long before Joe Biden and Barack Obama. And we have to admit that.
Yes.
This has been across Republican and Democratic parties for years.
Well, and I think that people don't like the fact that the amount that you get paid as a president or as a senator or a representative is X, okay? And then when you 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, or when you're near retirement, people say, oh, how in the world did this individual become worth $200 million?
Yes.
Okay, I mean, that's a fair question to ask.
Yes.
And it smells.
Mm.
And I'm not accusing any of them. You know, maybe they just become really, really smart on their investments. But the difference between what they're worth going in and what they're worth going out smells like corruption.
Mm-hmm.
And it smells like everyone getting a cut off the top. Now, I say everyone. I'm sure there are honest members of Congress in Washington, D.C., but it is striking that, I mean, and again, maybe we'll talk about this later if we have time, but I think I've seen polls where President Trump is more popular in his second term than he was in his first term, which is backwards. That's not the way it usually happens.
CBS poll last week.
Yes.
Confirms that.
All right. Let's move on before we start preaching.
Yeah, there is a lot to go over with Doge. So if we don't get into this before the break, we will, Lord willing, and the Lord tarries, get into it later this hour. One of the things that Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency and Elon Musk, they've been out there trying to find is the just astounding number of Americans that are still on the Social Security database, even though they died a long time ago.
And they're still getting payments.
Right. So Doge has discovered millions of Americans now over the age of 110 are still in the Social Security database. Fox's Cheryl Casone tells us this is what fraud looks like. Clip 2.
Look, this is called Social Security fraud. Elon Musk and Doge have been asked to find fraud, waste, abuse. Here you go, folks. Okay, 14 million Americans are in the Social Security database listed between the ages of 110 and, get this, 360 years old. 369, actually, is the top age. Google it, everybody. You will find multiple stories of evidence of Social Security fraud. Somebody passes away, whoever's at the residence just keeps cashing those checks, and the government doesn't realize that they passed away, and it's just an automatic check that keeps going out and going out, whether it's a person at the residence or a family member or a neighbor.
Well, listen, Ray, let me just say this. I know someone who had their Social Security number stolen, or anyway, this was during COVID, and someone in 2 different states started getting money from the government in the name of this person wasn't me, I'm just saying.
Right.
With their Social Security number. Okay, so they called the Social Security office, and they said, oh, well, this happens a lot more than we'd like. There's nothing we can really do about it.
Wow.
And when I heard this story, I thought, what do you mean there's nothing? But the fact is, there's so much money going out of D.C., they can't keep track of it. And the kinds of frauds that we're discussing now, where someone claiming to be 369, I don't know how that doesn't raise a red flag, and the Social Security Administration just says, well, we know that's before the foundation of the Republic, well before Social Security. I mean, we're just cutting that off.
We're expecting to hear Methuselah is still on the Social Security
I mean,
list.
this is craziness.
That's Book of Genesis chapter 5 kind of numbers, you know. Shouldn't somebody pick up on that?
Yeah, and the thing is, all this from 110. Now, I think that 110 is probably possible. Okay, but that they usually wind up on Good Morning America,
right?
You know, because they're so old. But when you start getting past that 150, I looked at the chart. There's a lot of people at the 150-year-old mark. But the problem is the government is so big.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You can't keep track of it, and that's what Doge is uncovering. Again, Department of Government Efficiency, that's what they're uncovering, and it's staggering.
Yeah.
And the more that Americans hear about this, the happier they're going to become that Donald Trump is going after it.
Yeah.
What I don't understand is how the Democrats and people in the media seem upset by the whole process.
Yeah.
It's strange. Mm-hmm. We live in strange times, but things that we were thinking might be happening, we're finding out actually are happening in Washington, D.C. All right, We're going to take a short break. When we come back, Dr. Alex McFarland, we're going to have two doctors on the program, folks. We're going to be talking about, can woke ideology become someone's God? We're going to talk to Alex when we come back. Hope you join us.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildmon.
There's a sentence in the book of books which reads like this: "For you were strangers in the land of Egypt." Experience is a great teacher, and all of us have had the experience of being a stranger on occasion. We can remember on those occasions how much we wanted someone to show us a little kindness. Being kind to another makes life enjoyable. It enriches the soul of the person showing kindness and wins the heart of the recipient. So a kind act helps at least two people, possibly and probably more. Greatness of soul isn't measured by genius, fame, or fortune. It's measured by kindness. Stephen Grellet once wrote, "I shall pass through this world but once. Any good, therefore, that I can do, or any kindness that I can show to any human being, let me do it now. Let me not defer nor neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again." I believe also that being kind to another brings kindness in return. There's a law of life which is stated like this: we reap what we sow. Most of us are aware of what happens when kindness isn't used. Harold Sandall put it this way: "Any kindness that is never used but hidden alone will slowly harden till it is hard as any stone." Do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. It's called the Golden Rule. It's a wonderful way of living. Be kind to others because you want them to be kind to you. Kindness is also the best persuasion we have. Now, our speech may be good and interesting, and we need to use interesting and informative words, but one act of kindness often speaks louder than 1,000 words. Frederick Faber once said, "Kindness has converted more sinners than zeal, eloquence, and learning." And that's true. The ministry of kindness is a ministry which may be achieved by all people, rich or poor, learned or illiterate, young or old. Brilliance of mind and capacity for deep thinking have rendered great service to humanity, but by themselves they are impotent to dry a tear or mend a broken heart. Whatever a person has to say, it does not mean much unless it is backed by action. And for many of us who have trouble getting our words to come out right, we found a simple act of kindness gets the job done. "The stranger who sojourns with you shall be to you as the native among you, and you shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt." We've all been strangers in the land of Egypt. We know how much kindness is wanted and needed and appreciated. Let us, therefore, be as kind to others as we would wish they were to us. Edgar Guest, the poet, he had a way of expressing profound thoughts in simple words, and he wrote this down one time: "When I see a deed of kindness, I'm eager to be kind. When a weakened brother stumbles and a strong man stays behind just to see if he can help him, then the wish grows strong in me to become as big and thoughtful as I know that friend can be. And all travelers can witness that the best of guides today is not the one who tells them, but the one who shows the way."
This has been My Turn with Don Wildmon, a production of the American Family Association.
For he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves. Colossians 1:13.
American Family Radio. This is Today's Issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of Today's Issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of Today's Issues.
And welcome back. Ed Vitagliano sitting in for Tim Wildmon this week. I'm joined in studio by Fred Jackson and Chris Woodward, and also remotely from, I want to say the frozen north, but it's not really that far north, Dr. Ray Pritchard. And now we welcome regular guests here on today's issues, Dr. Alex McFarland, co-host of Exploring the Word, heard weekdays at 3 p.m. Central Time here on American Family Radio. Alex, welcome back.
Well, good morning, everybody. How are we doing today?
Well, we're doing pretty well. Where are you today? Are you on the road? Are you at home? Where are you at?
My English teacher mom would say I'm behind the preposition.
I like that.
But I am in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And I'll tell you why. We have got a speaker series we're doing this summer. Ed, my calling is to evangelize the lost, but also my passion is to try and spur the church to biblical worldview. That's what we're about. And we're bringing in some speakers, Dinesh D'Souza, Gary Chapman, Charlie Kirk, and Lauren Green from Fox News.
Wow.
So I'm in the parking lot of First Baptist Church of North Myrtle Beach. And part of the reason we're doing it at Myrtle Beach, there's a theater industry here, and we've rented the Alabama Theater, which seats about 3,000 people. And I'm meeting pastors and just trying to, the 17 million people a year that vacation in Myrtle Beach, while they're down here getting the sun and the sand, we want to give them a little bit of biblical worldview. So over from May to August, we've got these 4 big speaker series that we're doing, and just trying to, part of revival is what I would call biblical literacy and the life of the mind. And so we're trying to inspire the church to really, not just put their faith in Jesus, but to grow and have a biblical worldview. And as you know, I do a lot of things all over the USA throughout the year to try to encourage that. And
Amen.
so
Well,
I'm out meeting pastors all day today.
Well, you said you're doing this interview and from a parking lot. I know we've had you on this show before, and you are off in an airport in some cubbyhole doing the interview. What's the strangest place you've ever done an interview in?
Twice in airports. Listen to this. So I'm in New York City. This was January of 23. And Todd Starnes and Lauren Green asked me to come up. And then one day I was in New York City, and I did 2 shows with Eric Metaxas. I did an interview with Todd Starnes, and I did like 2 or 3 interviews pre-record with Lauren Green. So I had my Comrex, and the Comrex, folks, is a thing that AFA gives to me. It's basically a radio studio in a box, right? So I called Bert and Brent Austin. I said, I'm going to LaGuardia Airport, and my flight is delayed. There's no way I can be on the show. Anyway, long story short, I sat down in LaGuardia Airport, and I put all the gear together, and I did Exploring the Word live from LaGuardia Airport. I was over in a corner. Well, all these people, they saw me with headphones on, and I was out of the way. Well, one by one, people started coming and sitting on the floor. I had an audience of, I kid you not, like 25 people, and they couldn't hear Bert. They could only hear me. And I'm in LaGuardia Airport with a little audience sitting on the floor around me listening to Exploring the Word.
That's awesome.
That cool?
That is awesome. I love that.
And during all the commercial breaks, I would say, "Hey, by the way, my name's Alex. This is the American Family Radio Network," and so it worked. And Brent Austin didn't reprimand me too bad for the background noise, and I did the same thing in DFW one time. And part of it is, with the portable gear, you can do the radio show, but I don't like to not be live because whenever we're not live, man, we get a slew of emails and people are like, "Hey, where are you guys? I tuned in and you weren't live." So we try not to miss.
Yeah. Well, that's a great story, and that's just the way the Lord works. Who knows, one or two of those people, maybe more, impacted by the gospel, and we just thank God for those God moments that he just kind of creates. All right, so we wanted to have you on just to talk about something. Chris, why don't you kind of set this up for Alex knows about it, but
Yes.
set it up for our listeners.
Yeah, since the November election and Donald Trump's victory over Vice President Kamala Harris, there is a lady that has appeared on Fox News many times. We've aired many clips of her saying these things. But her name is Lindy Lee, and she is now an ex-Democrat Party fundraiser. And she's been in Fox News and other news outlets for a good while now, including a story yesterday. Alex, actually talked to our Steve Jordahl about this very topic that I'm about to mention. But Lindy Lee's latest comments to Fox and other news outlets involves the God, little g, of the Democratic Party. Lindy Lee is quoted as saying that woke is the, quote, religion or God of the Democratic Party. She says things like this trans woke insanity, they're enthralled by it. They worship it. They live by it. They do what it wants them to do. What do you think about those comments from Lindy Lee that woke is the religion or God of the Democratic Party?
Well, I think it's a very astute observation. And let me say, no Christian evangelist ever had the religious zeal very often manifested by those that are on the woke progressive left. And I'm going to take it even farther than the word religion, Chris, and say it's a cult. And let me explain. In a cult, there are faith claims, there's an orthodoxy, and then there's pressure to join, pressure to conform, pressure to remain. Now let me say some of the faith of the secular left, and see, here's the thing: when somebody doesn't have a relationship with the true and living God, there will be a God, little g, in their life. On the left, I mean, it's the environment, it's abortion and no legal protection for the unborn, it's globalism, it's socialism, it's sexual license, LGBTQ trans. It's that marriage and family are the problem in their eyes. It's self-loathing and hating America. It's the legalization of drugs that will be the panacea to solve things. And it's the idea that more money and welfare programs will solve poverty. So, I mean, it's, even though there's no evidence, in fact, there's evidence to the contrary, but the religion of the woke left Democrat Party, faith that we can build a man-made utopia if we can just tax people enough. And then there are orthodoxies that you dare not question. You dare not question man-made climate change. You dare not question the right of a woman to abort her baby. You dare not question that children are transgender. I mean, these are orthodoxies that may not be questioned. And then there's pressure to join, pressure to remain, pressure to conform. Guys, this is not critical, rational thinking or good government. This is a cult.
Alex, Fred here. To your point, what's really interesting, there are some within the Democrat Party that say the things that you're out there promoting are the reason we lost in November. But the Democratic Party of today, the AOCs and many others, are saying, we don't care. We are going to stick with this even if we keep losing elections, because the American people, at least up to this point, are not willing to say we go along with these things, Democratic Party, that you're prioritizing. So it is, to your point, it's become cultic in their, transsexual. Yeah, we think it's a good idea that men who declare themselves as girls should be allowed to compete in girls' sports. They're not going to give up on this. This is what they stand for. And if it costs them elections, they don't seem to care, which is really strange because most political parties like to win elections.
Well, and this is where it's, again, delusional and irrational. Now, let me say this. Frankly, I'm glad the Democrat Party is hyper woke. I hope they go more woke because I, as one who fears God and loves America, I want the Democrats to continue losing elections uh, because they're toxic for the country. Let me just say this, that when you have a vacuous position and the facts are not on your side, the way that you defend is by accusing your opponent. And I mean, you saw it in the debates, the Harris debates. This goes all the way back to, Hillary Clinton and her deplorables moment. The debate tactic of the woke Democrat left are ad hominem arguments, and that's Latin. That means to the man. So that they'll say, if you don't believe in man-made climate change, if you do believe in parents' rights, if you believe in freedom of religious expression, you're hateful and you're ignorant. It's like, well, the we don't believe that EVs will save the planet. Well, that's because you're not smart enough to understand it. We don't think that males should be allowed in female changing rooms. Well, that's because you're transphobic. So all they've got, because they have no evidence, and reality itself is against the woke ideology, all they have are ad hominem attacks. And we conservative Christian hardworking people that believe in living within our means. And we believe that a child needs a mother and a father in the home. And we believe that education should be about the pursuit of truth, not the forcing of indoctrination. We're not hateful. God knows, not afraid of anything. We fear God, and that's it. But we want our nation to be saved. And we know the best way to do that is to elect leaders. Well, we need godly churches, godly homes, but when we elect people, they need to be constitutionalists that believe in morality. Two things you don't find within the ranks of the Democrat Party.
Well, that's excellent insights there, Alex. We always appreciate your biblical take, spiritual take on a lot of the political and cultural things that are going on. What are you and Brother Bert talking about this week? What can folks look forward to if they tune in to Exploring the Word at 3 p.m. Central Time on American Family Radio?
Well, thanks, Ed. We are in Exodus, and we've just finished the plagues. And so, they're going to leave Egypt, and Pharaoh and his armies will be in pursuit. We'll be in Exodus 13, and then, the parting of the Red Sea. So, we figured out in 15 years of exploring the Word, we've done like 3,000 shows.
Wow.
And we've taught through the entire Bible like 3 times. And Bert and I give God the glory, but about 2 weeks ago, we turned in the final edits of our 3rd book. We did 100 Bible questions, and then we did 100 Bible questions for families. And so coming out this fall, Bert and I will be releasing 100 Bible questions on prophecy and the end times. And so anyway, we appreciate the fact. And one last thing I got to say this. Thursday morning, I am in Wichita, Kansas, Thursday through Sunday at East Metro Baptist Church. We've got a big thing, a lot of churches on board. We'll be and I'll be in a Christian school Friday morning, but we're teaching on the 21 toughest questions your kids will ask about Christianity. And then on Sunday morning, I'll be doing a message on Daniel and Revelation. So it's on my website, alexmcfarland.com. If you're in the Wichita, Kansas area, I'd love to see you Thursday through Sunday.
And we have a lot of listeners in that area. Listen, I'm so happy that you guys have gotten through the plagues, Exodus, and the children of Israel leaving Egypt, because it's one of my favorite parts of the Bible, because Israel just goes on from glory to glory here, don't they? From one blessed victory after another, just demonstrating their faith in God, unwaverable. So this is going to be very interesting.
Not always.
No, I was tongue in cheek.
Yeah, and Moses is like, Lord, just kill me. I can't lead these people.
Yeah,
No, but
there have been a few pastors that have probably prayed that. And anyway, Alex, thank you so much for being on with us today. Appreciate it. Appreciate you. And we do thank God for the ministry that he has given you and the grace he gives you to faithfully carry that out.
God is good. Blessings to all. Thanks for letting me be on.
All right. Thank you, brother.
You know, it's not only the Democratic Party that's whose God is woke. It's the mainstream media.
Yes, that is true.
Mainstream media. We remember the clip we played yesterday of that CBS reporter, and it was with Marco Rubio,
yeah.
Secretary of State.
Margaret Brennan is the lady you're talking about.
Brennan, she of course, Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance talking about the dangers of losing the freedom of speech in Europe. Brennan says to Marco Rubio that it was because of freedom of speech gave rise to Hitler and the Nazis and the death of 6 million Jews. And fortunately, Marco Rubio very quietly corrected her on that. Because there wasn't freedom of speech, that gave rise to Hitler and the Nazis and the genocide of the Jewish people. But here was a very smart lady, Ms. Brennan, blaming freedom of speech for the rise of the Nazi Party in Germany, which was totally false. But she had to dedicate herself to being against Trump.
Well, you know, we played yesterday. We played, and Chris, maybe you can kind of comment on this. We played that segment, CBS. I met them in 60 Minutes, but they were over in Germany.
We're talking to prosecutors.
Yes, talking to prosecutors, asking if you do this, and it was all about free speech.
Yes.
Is that illegal? Yes, that's illegal. Now, I haven't. Have either of you guys seen that? Is that
I have.
You have seen it?
Yeah, I'll post a link on our page so people can see what we're
I'm
talking
saying,
about
have you
here.
seen the 60 Minutes?
I've seen that
episode?
excerpt. I haven't
Okay.
seen the episode.
I'm just asking. I'm wondering which side of this issue 60 Minutes is going to come down on.
Oh, I'm pretty. It's obvious. I think.
Obvious what?
They want to go in the way of Germany. And
Yes,
other places,
that's what I'm wondering.
which is ludicrous because CBS exists because of the First Amendment. Free speech. Like any news outlet in America with a broadcast license, which CBS is one of many examples, exists because of our laws.
Yeah, Ray, I got to say, this is becoming bizarro world when you have media outlets, and I think Fred's exactly right. They are given over to this, people call it the woke mind virus. I'm good with that. Or the woke ideology. I've been reading, the expectation is that this 60 Minutes, I don't know if it's the whole show or the segment, but the left, politically, but also in the news media, seems set on going down this path. You weren't on the show yesterday, so I don't know if you heard this, but these German prosecutors were saying, yes, if you insult somebody publicly, you can go to jail. And if you retweet something, and I am amazed that the left, including those in the media, seem to want to go down the path of restricting free speech when, as Chris says, they've benefited from it.
Well, look, the First Amendment to our Constitution makes it perfectly clear. There should be no law prohibiting the exercise of free speech, free press, exercise of religion, and so on. America was built on a certain set of freedoms, individual freedoms, the right to speak your mind. So now in Germany, the leftist crowd over there has gone so far as to say, if you post a meme we don't like, if you post a meme, just a little cartoon on your Facebook, on your social media, Twitter, whatever it is, you can go to jail. It's beyond belief that the leaders in Germany are saying this, but what's much worse is to think that a network like CBS is going to back that up. Well, woke mind virus is a good word for it because it destroys the ability to think critically, logically, and honestly.
Now, folks, I do want to clarify. I have not seen the entire segment. I don't know how 60 Minutes is going to come down on it. But if they, to your point, Chris, if they were to be supportive of restrictions, I mean, I have heard Hillary Clinton talking about the fact that we've got to crack down on quote-unquote misinformation. I think there are a lot of people in the news media who follow that reasoning, who would therefore agree with what they're doing in Germany. And part of the reason that they agree with it is they hate, Fred, they hate the influence of a platform like X, which has undermined the monopoly that the legacy media once had on telling Americans what was happening and how to think about it.
I believe if Kamala Harris had been elected president and the Democrats had 4 more years, then the license of American Family Radio would have been in jeopardy.
I absolutely believe that is not hyperbole.
Yeah,
we had discussions.
Yes,
here with our general counsel Abe Hamilton. Yeah. What do we do if?
Well, Kamala Harris, I believe, and the Democrats, the left wing and the Democrats, would say we believe in free speech, as long as the speech agrees with us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Anything else we're going to classify as misinformation, a threat to democracy, all the phrases that they
we
used,
heard for 4 years.
That we heard for 4 years. And therefore, and we saw it. We've seen it in Germany in the last 10, 15 years. They went in and grabbed the kids of a homeschool family.
Yes.
Because they weren't the homeschool family, and I think, Chris, you can correct me, the homeschool family, according to German authorities, were not raising their kids with state values.
That's exactly what they said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They were not raising good German citizens
Yes.
who believe what everybody should believe.
Yes. State values being pro-homosexuality, pro-transgenderism. I believe that was coming to our shores by way of the Democratic Party.
You know, when you hear stories like that happening in modern day Germany, where are the Hitler did this kind of thing people today? Because that's obviously just as wrong as what Hitler and the Nazi parties were doing to people who dared speak differently.
Yeah, but you know what they are doing in the media? They're doing what Brennan did to Marco Rubio.
Yeah. Well, they're all in cahoots.
Tried to make it look like the Trump administration are the Nazis.
Yes.
When it's the left.
Yeah.
That seems to be drifting towards that totalitarian, authoritarian approach. And the Bill of Rights is just an obstacle to crush or get around.
This is the same network.
It's stunning.
This is the same network with a guy that used to sign off telling people that's the way it is.
Yeah, Walter Cronkite.
Yeah.
Yes.
With CBS. For a long time, Walter Cronkite was the most trusted man in America. And what he said, in fact, my dad he loved Walter Cronkite until Walter Cronkite I think he went to Vietnam, and I'm not trying to open up that can of worms. A lot of people have changed their minds about whether we should have been in Vietnam, et cetera, et cetera. But Walter Cronkite came back, and for the first time ever, he gave his opinion. But before that, nobody knew what his opinion was because that's the way journalism was done.
Yeah.
So, anyway, Ray, you want to toss in here? I'm sorry, folks. I've been in preach mode for the last hour.
What do you think about Vietnam, Ray?
Free speech on the left means I can say whatever I want for me, and for the rest of you, sit down and shut up.
Yes. Yeah, and the stunning thing was that Hillary Clinton, which I keep going back to her, I know she's not the standard bearer for the left anymore. Okay, but all this stuff about disinformation and, Russian disinformation and all these kinds of things, as it all turned out, she was the one doing it.
Yes.
And the Democratic Party and the people on the left, they were the ones doing all this while they accused Trump of being the one who was doing it. Folks, I never thought, 1984 or Animal Farm or any of those kinds of books that I read in high school were ever going to come to pass in this country. But we dodged a bullet in 2024.
Yes.
For whatever reason, God has chosen to have mercy on us and not put us through that kind of fire. But that kind of fire was coming down the pike, and we may have held it off. People, you need to keep praying because this battle isn't over yet.
That's right. That's right.
All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break for news, and when we come back, Steve Jordahl joins us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
As a federal or state employee, you have the opportunity to support the American Family Association through the combined federal campaign by designating a monthly payroll deduction using 12037. You help AFA continue to fight for your family. So when you complete your CFC form, remember, AFA's number is 12037. And thank you for your help.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. At least 14 people are dead following this weekend's flooding in Kentucky. Jonathan Seri has more from Reeves, Tennessee.
After a weekend of devastating floods, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear is warning residents of another threat, cold temperatures.
What this means is water that's out there, we still have a lot, can freeze. We're going to see black ice in different places during both the days and the nights at how cold it's going to get. And remember, the extra snow we're going to get.
Meanwhile, Tennessee's Governor Bill Lee is surveying flood damage in his state, touring hard-hit areas in Montgomery and Obion counties.
Harsh cold has descended on the nation's midsection as a polar vortex grips the Rockies and northern plains. The National Weather Service is warning of life-threatening cold as wind chills drop to minus 60 in parts of North Dakota. Weather forces in the Arctic are combining to push the chilly air that usually stays near the North Pole into the U.S. and Europe. Extreme cold warnings have been issued for an 11-state area of the U.S., stretching from the Canada border to Oklahoma and central Texas. The Delta Airlines plane flipped after landing at Toronto's Pearson Airport Monday and ended up on its roof, injuring 18 people. The airport's chief executive says all 80 people on board survived, and those hurt had relatively minor injuries. The flight from Minneapolis attempted to land on a dry runway around 12:15 Monday in Toronto. Meanwhile, Democrats and their allies in the media are trying to blame President Trump for the plane crash in Canada, even though Canada's air traffic control has nothing to do with the FAA. Former FAA employee and aviation expert Kyle Bailey says air traffic control had nothing to do with this accident.
From what I see at this point, they have zero to do with this accident. It's not a matter of staffing. They had nothing to do with this at all. I could tell you that right now.
Democrats are having a meltdown, and the professional protesters are out, angry that Elon Musk is being granted access to IRS data in his effort to carry out President Trump's promise to eliminate fraud and abuse. Fox Nation host and former Trump advisor Kellyanne Conway says these people who are protesting have serious mental issues.
Their message has gone from Trump derangement syndrome to Elon derangement syndrome. They suffer from EDS, and they're going to protest professionally Tesla dealerships today, reminding us all what a genius Elon Musk is. So I think Elon's going to continue to do his work. If you're him, why would you care what people think about you and say about you? But those protests today are by a professional group that's just a movable feast of derangement. They've got nothing else to say, no good ideas.
A Democrat fundraiser has left the party, saying it's in shambles and is unlikely to recover because, she says, woke has become their god.
Lindy Lee has raised tens of millions of dollars over the years for Democrat candidates and causes, but she recently told Fox Digital that she's done. She says, quote, Democrat donors absolutely, without a single exception, are so angry and upset with the party because they think it is in complete shambles. She says woke is their religion. It's their god. Alex McFarland of Exploring the Word on AFR could not agree more.
It's been observed that the Democrat fidelity to wokeness, progressivism, is like a religion. And I would say that is absolutely true.
Lee calls it gender hysteria and a social contagion. McFarland says everybody worships something.
In every life, there will be an ultimate commitment to an ultimate thing. There is a God in every life.
But he says woke is especially pernicious because Democrats use it to hit young people over the head and guilt them into sin.
Being enamored with wokeness speaks to the fallen human desire to be one's own God.
He says many Democrats are waking up either to the fact that the ship is sinking or even that the platform is evil.
People realize what they're about, and they thankfully, prayerfully got out in droves to vote for politicians that actually care about America, Donald J. Trump at the forefront.
I'm Steve Jordahl.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
The United States Senate is dragging its feet in confirming President Donald Trump's cabinet nominees, and they could use your encouragement. It seems some senators are purposely delaying votes at every turn. These delays serve only to impede the president's agenda and the service these government departments provide. AFA Insider urges you to email your two senators, encouraging them to do their part to move the president's nominations forward. Visit afa.net and click on Activism and AFA Insider to email your two senators today.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Ed Vitagliano.
And welcome back, folks. Ed Vitagliano sitting in for Tim Wildmon this week. I'm joined in studio by Fred Jackson. By the way, we do have Ray Pritchard out in Kansas. Ray, tell our listeners a little bit about your ministry, Keep Believing, and what the website is, what kind of stuff is going on. I know, I think it was last year. Was it last year or the year before? Sometimes time flies when you were doing the video Bible reading. Was that last year?
It was the year before last.
But wow.
We're in the third year of doing this by the video. And 2 years ago, read through the whole Bible. And then last year, second time around, and now the third time around. And I want to say, Ed, a special thanks to AFR for it, and to you for mentioning it, because we have tons. That's a technical term.
Yes.
We have tons of AFR listeners who write in and say, I heard you on the radio, I hopped on the Bible bus, and now today we're in the book of Leviticus, chapters 18.
That's good stuff there.
I mean, come on now. That's Death Valley for all Bible reading programs, right? You can make it through Leviticus. You can do
genius.
The rest of the Bible. You know.
That's Death Valley.
Hop on, come to keepbelieving.com, and on the front page, believing.com, you'll see the video Bible reading for today. And I read the Bible, and I give, introductory comments, outline the book, and then read it, and then some application at the end, quoting a lot of hymns and songs to help people get the great point of the Bible. Point is to the Lord Jesus Christ. Been a lot of fun, and thanks to AFR for supporting us in this. Anyway, come also to the website, and you'll see Bible studies and video courses. Got a video course through Revelation, and one through Daniel, and one through James, and one through Galatians, and one through Ephesians, and one through spiritual warfare. That's the newest one, called Stealth Attack, arming yourself against Satan's dirty war. So it's all there at keepbelieving.com. It's free. Come on, folks. Hop on the Bible bus, and let's do Leviticus together.
Well, I'll tell you, Ray, my wife was singing your praises the other day. She is on the Bible bus, and she really, really enjoys it very much.
Wow. Fred, thank her very much. From my heart to yours to hers. Appreciate that.
Well, now,
to everybody, we found the Bible's really okay. It's okay. Ed, the Bible's an okay book.
That's right.
Well, listen,
and once you start
I
reading,
do want to say, just to take a little shine off this, that I tried to get on the Bible bus, and you told me to go to the short bus. So I don't know how I feel about that, but. No, I'm just kidding. Folks, check it out at keepbelieving.com. Keepbelieving.com. Lots of great stuff there, not just the Bible reading, lots of great materials and helps to encourage you and increase your knowledge about God and the kingdom and the scriptures. All right, well, Steve Jordahl has been patiently sitting.
Yeah,
I
got a couple of things to say here. Ray, this year or next year, we expect you to do it in the original Greek. And just for reference,
I'm working on that.
I know you have tons of listeners. 8 of me equals 1 ton. So you might have at least 16 to 17 listeners would be, or 20
I'm liking
listeners
it,
would be 2
Steve.
tons.
I'm liking it. I'm brushing up on my Greek and I'm working on my Hebrew. And
there you go.
Aramaic
Oh, man.
is just a dream.
Yeah, just an Aramaic. Wow, that is a dream. All right, Steve. Welcome to the show. And
thank you.
What do you got for us?
Let me start here. I have a bit of cultural trivia, I guess. It's an interesting cultural piece based, and it kind of has to do with this plane crash. So, Fred, you are a pilot. What airport did this happen at?
Toronto's Pearson Airport, big international airport.
Okay. Do you know what the call letters are?
YYZ.
And do you know how that sounds in Morse code?
No.
YYZ?
Yes.
That's the airport designator.
So there's a band that was popular in the 70s and 80s and 90s, 2000s called Rush.
Yes. Yes.
And Rush is a Canadian band. And they would go all on tour. They were really kind of not the rockers. They never did the party stuff. They were always in their rooms, doing stuff. But they would come back to fly back to Canada. They would fly into Toronto, and they were feeling homesick. It was always a welcome back to that airport was always their welcome home. It was a very warm feeling. So they wrote a song called YYZ.
Really?
Yes. It's an instrumental song. And it starts with the band playing the Morse code of YY, what they call Z.
Really?
I'll give you a listen. It's cut 14.
And that is the Morse code.
That's the Morse code.
YYZ.
For YYZ.
YYZ.
That is a phenomenal song, by the way. Such talented musicians.
I will say this. I never thought I would see the day when we played Rush on AFR.
Well, you just did.
But we did tie it into the news.
Yes, it is. And it wasn't, there's nothing offensive about that.
Right. No, it's just instrumental.
That was the Morse code.
So wow, that's now how did you know that?
Well, I'm a Rush fan.
Okay.
I knew the story.
All right.
So when I saw that the airport they referred to it as YYZ, I thought, oh, well, I know this one.
Was Rush Limbaugh named after?
No, not an airport nor the group. I think he predated the group by quite a bit.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So let's get started on the news.
All right. So I know you guys were talking about Doge, right?
Yes.
And I know there's one particular.
I'm going to get a tattoo.
I know,
of
right?
Doge. No, I'm just kidding, folks.
There's one story about what they're finding, and Ed, I know you kind of had wanted to talk about this. Doge has discovered not billions, not even $1 trillion, almost $5 trillion in treasury payments that they have no idea where they went.
This is insane.
Now,
this story.
It's not all fraud, although they don't know how much is. It's this. What they did is it's like as if you put a name of something in your checkbook, like I don't know.
Well, cash. If you wrote out the cash and then didn't put anything in the memo,
you didn't put the amount in. You didn't put anything in the memo. So you had no idea where it was going, and they don't know where the stuff went. But almost $5 trillion.
It's $4.7 trillion.
Yes.
I saw this, I don't know, overnight or yesterday or something. This is insane.
Here's the reality. Businesses, if a business did this and they're audited, this would never happen.
Oh.
Businesses have to keep a record of money coming in, where the money is going, where the checks are going, because they are audited.
Mm-hmm.
Ministries are audited. Right. They are audited.
We do an outside audit of this ministry.
Yes.
Every year.
Yes. So everybody else has to live by the rules.
Yeah.
But what Elon Musk is finding is our own government is not living by the rules. They expect everybody else.
Oh.
If an IRS did an audit, they'd want to know. Okay, this is ridiculous. You have a line item here for millions of dollars, and you're not telling us where it's going. You better come up with the answer to
Yeah,
this.
but this is the problem with what Doge has found here on this. Ray, what they have found, and we're just kind of making sure this is understandable to I'm not an economics person, but I know this is wrong, okay? We used to have a checkbook. I do it in the computer now, but they have this, what they call a treasury account symbol for all transactions, and it's an identification code. I'm quoting now out of a New York Post article, an identification code which links a treasury payment to a budget line item. So you can justify the expenditure because it's in the budget. And what they have found is that 4.7 trillion with a T in payments, $4.7 trillion in payments, this field for the treasury account symbol was left blank. So to Fred's point, not only did they not put where it was going when they were sending the money out, now nobody can ever know where it was. This ex post from Doge says it makes traceability almost impossible.
Hey, I mean, this is like organized crime, right?
Yeah.
Except this is our government. And guys, I don't even know, how does this happen? We've heard before. We've heard for years about waste and fraud in the government. I'm not asking how does that happen, because we know in any big scale organization there's going to be stuff happening in the corners that nobody knows about.
Right.
But at this scale, you're talking about, how is it possible that nobody caught this? Or did somebody catch it, then everybody just turned away? Or was somebody on the take? I mean, Fred, how does this happen?
Well, it happens because no one has done what Elon Musk and Doge is doing.
Yes.
That's the problem. There's been no checking of the government who checks everybody else, but nobody's checking them.
Listen, this insanity, we all have been complaining for a couple of decades, probably at least since the Obama administrations, but we have been complaining that Congress passes these omnibus spending bills, thousands of pages deep, and nobody reads them in Congress before they vote. And now we're finding out on the other end, Steve, that we don't know where the money's going. Maybe they'll find out, and maybe they'll say, well, it was defense spending. And
I don't know. You would think that they could take everything they know and everybody that says they're getting money and narrow it down. But I don't know if they will. But I tell you, the Democrats, as you guys have probably been saying, are losing their minds over this. Unconstitutional, unelected. We can't have it. It's totally, they're evil. They're Nazis. How could they do this? I have a recording of President Trump and Elon Musk talking about what they want to do. Let's cut 15.
Budget reform is not an option. It's a necessity.
The American people are entitled to transparency.
We can't sustain a system that bleeds billions of taxpayer dollars on programs that have outlived their usefulness or exist solely because of the power of politicians, lobbyists, or interest groups.
They're entitled to be able to figure out where their dollars are going, and they're entitled to accountability to make sure that we're using the dollars for what we said it was for.
We are going to go through our federal budget, as I promised during the campaign, page by page, line by line, eliminating those programs we don't need and insisting that those that we do need operate in a sensible, cost-effective way. What should be easy is getting rid of the pointless waste and stupid spending that doesn't benefit anybody.
We hope to be instilling an entire new culture that not only our administration, but every succeeding administration will in fact pursue.
No amount of waste is acceptable, not when it's your money.
Did I say it was Trump and Musk?
Yes.
I'm sorry, that wasn't Trump and Musk.
Yeah, that was President Obama and President Biden. Okay, now you brought up...
Who was vice president at the time.
Yes, who was vice president at the time. So you brought up the Rush song. Yeah. Who sang that song, Liar? You remember that? Liar, liar. That's what came to mind when I was listening to them. And listen, in case you think I'm being partisan here, Republicans have been voting for this baloney too. Now, Ray, we were talking during the break. Fred and I were, so you probably couldn't hear it. I think you were out getting a snow cone or something,
That's right.
So the American people probably just have given up on the amount of money this country spends, but they're starting to pay attention now with what DOGE is doing. I consider this, we were talking about outside audit for ministries are supposed to do that. This is like an outside audit for our government because you can't trust the fox in the hen house.
Yeah.
But the American people, I think, are going to start getting very angry at what DOGE is discovering because they probably assumed a lot of money was wasted and went outside the country for helping the, feed hungry kids and that kind of stuff. But they're starting to realize that this money was being wasted on other countries and on illegal immigrants in this country when it could have been coming to their own communities or building bridges or paying teachers, what have you. I think that's what's going to make a lot of Americans angry.
I'm just looking at Twitter, X, and thinking about Elon Musk. I think it's fair to say, Mr. Trump's election notwithstanding, I think without Elon Musk and the mega-size bullhorn that he has on X, I'm looking at it right. He's at 218 million followers. 218 million. That's he can get behind this as he has this Doge movement, and that infuriates the Chuck Schumers of the world and the Nancy Pelosi's of the world because he's making an end run around NBC and ABC and CBS. He is speaking directly to the people, and the Democrats hate that because they can't stop him.
One of the laughable things the Democrats and the mainstream media are putting forward, what if Doge, they start seeing people's Social Security numbers? What if? And they keep saying, well, they're not federal employees. But yeah, they've been appointed by President Trump. There's all kinds of federal employees that have access, folks, to your Social Security numbers.
Yeah.
All kinds. Are they all pure that they would never try to copy a Social Security number down and give it to somebody for nefarious reasons? But the mainstream media and the Democrats are saying, what if Elon Musk sees a Social Security number and starts tracing? That's what he's there to do. Yeah. He's being asked by the President of the United States, go line by line. We want to see where the money is going. Who is benefiting from this money? And you have to scratch your head. Why are the Democrats worried about that? Elon Musk doesn't need anybody else's money, folks.
Right.
He doesn't. I think he's probably the best person in the world to be in charge of this. Number one, he's not taking any salary. Number two, he doesn't need anybody else's money.
Right.
He doesn't. So why not have him in charge of this? And all they are doing, they're acting on President Trump's wishes. We want an audit. We want to know where American taxpayers' money is going. And if it's being wasted, we're going to get rid of it.
Right.
Milton Friedman had an insight into why this is
famous
happening.
Conservative economist.
He had a saying, okay, so there are 4 ways you can spend money. And with each one I'm going to list, you are increasingly less careful with how you spend it. You can spend your own money on yourself,
right?
Which you watch every penny and make sure it's right. You can spend your own money on somebody else, and you'll be very careful. You can spend somebody else's money on yourself, and you can spend somebody else's money on somebody else. The government is completely doing number 4, and there's no reason to have to worry about balancing the books or how much you spend. It's somebody else's money going to somebody else.
Well, and this story, and we can probably move on because my blood pressure is high enough. But $4.7 trillion. I was just staggered by that. Now, again, I just want to stress, they may find out where it went, and we may go, oh, okay, that makes sense. But the fact that they were not putting this Treasury account symbol in so that you can quickly identify where it's going is, to your point, Steve, the product of the fact that the federal government is spending other people's money on other people besides themselves. Well, some of it's going to themselves,
well,
clearly.
yeah,
So, all right. Well, I will continue to watch this. I heartily approve of what Elon Musk and Doge is doing under the auspices of what Donald Trump wants done.
I'm sure he'll be
good
relieved.
on you guys.
He'll be relieved to know that.
Yes, I'm sure. I'm sure he's listening.
All right. Hey, things not going so well with the Ukraine war. So there is a meeting between Donald Trump, the Trump administration, and the Putin administration in Saudi Arabia. Marco Rubio is there. And somebody leaked the peace plan that they're crafting to the UK Telegraph. It just, if I was Ukraine, I would be furious too. This is what they are saying. The plan would guarantee the United States half of the revenues generated by the extraction of resources in Ukraine going forward, as well as half the revenues generated by all licenses issued to third parties. Trump demands would mount to a higher share of Ukrainian GDP than reparations were extracted from Germany after World War I. Trump plans to entirely let Russia off the hook, according to the Telegraph, for its invasion of Ukraine 3 years ago that has resulted in hundreds of thousands of deaths in both countries. So basically, it sounds like from what they're saying. I haven't seen the plan, but this is what they say. It almost sounds like Britain and the Nazis giving away Czechoslovakia.
Well, thank you for making such a strong statement with 5 minutes left in the show.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So I don't know any of this. You said it was leaked, so this must be pretty recent.
Yep.
All right. So Fred, Ray, and then I'll chime in. What is your initial reaction? We're going to have to digest this. I will. But what's your initial thoughts?
Well, the fact that a British newspaper has come out with this, I'm very suspect of the integrity of the report. This is another agency that doesn't like Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. I do believe the United States has a right to say we invested hundreds of billions of dollars in this war. Therefore, we want to be at the table. The meeting in Riyadh is over. This is the initial meeting between the United States and Putin. Zelensky is going to be involved. The Ukrainian leader is going to be involved at some point. But I think Donald Trump is just saying enough is enough. We've got to sit down with the Russians. How do we end this thing? But I am suspect of the information that you just read. I'm suspect of the source.
The Telegraph.
Yeah, it could be, and Ray, I didn't mean to jump in front of you here, but it could be that this is Trump's opening gambit. And then he'll go to the Ukrainians and he'll have some other outrageous thing that Russia won't like. Then he'll get them together and hopefully they'll come up with something. This is what he's done.
Initial offer.
This is basically how he's been reacting lately. Ray?
All right,
Well,
what's your thought?
Right. Art of the deal, right? You go to the Russians, you make a deal with them that is completely on their side, absolving them from all guilt in the war and all that. Then you go to Zelensky and say, okay, let's work it on the other side. And then you go back and forth, a sort of like that Henry Kissinger back and forth diplomacy.
Subtle diplomacy.
Yeah. That kind of thing. And that there's a long history of that. So this might be a good way to say it. This might be the opening gambit. It's not. This is where things start. I do not think by any means it's going to end there, because I don't think the Ukrainians would accept a deal like that. Really, why should they? The war's got to end, and both sides got to give. This is, even if it's true, which I question too, Fred, even if it's true, this is just the opening gambit. Much more to come, I think.
Well, I'm with you fellers, okay? So it is – I do have suspicions. Telegraph is a leftist – it's a lefty paper. And the fact that somebody, quote unquote, leaked it to them may be their attempt to derail the discussions that are going on. So I agree with Fred on that. I agree with Steve that this very well could be just the initial offer and a series of counter offers that will change dramatically what the final peace deal will be. And I'm with I'm with Ray because if this is true, that's wrong. The U.S. I do agree with Fred that we need to get some of our money back, but unless we gave that money with that understanding, then I'm not sure we have the right to claw that back by taking their resources or else. But anyway, we're just going to have to wait and see. This would be stunning if this was the actual final plan of the president. But we're going to have to wait and see, folks, because our time is over. You know what? Keep listening to American Family Radio. We'll probably have stories later on in the day. Lord willing, we will see you back here tomorrow.
Have you heard of the Freedom Trail in Boston?